Welcome back to Straight Talk. Before we took our break, we were talking about some of the things that were discussed in the article in the Eastern Door about initiatives that Carl was talking about, Carl Horn. And of course, one of those things is that Carl is on the police services as a board, I believe it's called now. And one of the things they talked about was, in fact, this issue of getting PK presence there on the ground. To me, that whole thing, it's good. You remember when you were the chief peacekeeper? I mean, you instituted people in the community, more presence in the community on foot. That kind of thing, I think, can work. But you can't have it. But as you said, I mean, there's just too much. There's too much brush. There's too much territory. You can't go in there running around trying to break up this and that going on.
I mean, if you had a plan in place, I think that you can cover those areas during certain times.
But there's a lot of, but then those issues again of liability, who's going to be responsible? If we go in there as a community and say that we're going to clean it up and then we're going to patrol and there's going to be supervision and there's going to be, then if something, continues, if something does happen again, then who's liable? You know what I mean? There's a lot of little different levels of liability.
I know.
Are we going to condone? Then
Well, start from the issue of trespass.
But the thing is,
we're all good. If say because there's been talk about that about parents going there or just parents, community members going and having a presence there. And just having that have some kind of impact.
I've been going. I used to go there when it was open, the quarry, and climb down the pipe and swim, and then as it started filling up, I even used to bring my kids in there. I mean, and when I left, they left though. They didn't stay.
Even if you took away the social concerns, which are the drugs and the alcohol and the potential for violence unattended to. I mean, there's still the things of it's a quarry for crying out loud. We were talking to one young man in the community. Well, guy, he's in his 30s now. Okay, now he's a parent, but he talked about hanging out at the quarry and then being in the water and then a big chunk of rock falling off, hitting him in the head, and he was covered with blood, and it was only because a friend of his jumped in because where you jump in, you can't just get out there. He had to dog paddle him
to the other side where you can get out.
You know what? There's so many different safety issues. Falling off or something. I mean, people have gotten hurt before. But it's unfortunate that what happened now, and maybe now it's going to fast track some of the ideas that they were, this group that with Carl talking about are going to, I guess, be more vigilant in trying to do it. They can't do it on their own because that's a big task, just the quarry itself. And then there's that issue, and then even now with the seaway, I mean, the island. People have been going on the island for again since I was a kid, and then a couple of weeks ago. Somebody got hit by a car there too, and that's becoming an issue. I mean, well, actually not. It's still an issue.
And of course, kids are driving without driver's licenses, and that's never. I mean, so I mean that's somebody lets them have the car, or they're driving without permission. And that's something as a community. I mean,
it seems every generation goes through a different spot or a different stage,
Yeah, but I mean, there's been the tried and true, Pocahontas Rock, and then there was the Bay, then there was there's all these, they're public areas that people go and party at, or private even, private areas where they'll go and party, and if it's with water and the alcohol and or drugs, it doesn't matter. That's always it's a dangerous mix, and it's always going to have some sort of risk of involved in that. And when it comes to teens, as we all know, that teens have less experience with regards to the substances that they're drinking, that they're taking, as well as drinking. They don't have the same, tolerance. They don't know how to control themselves as much. Then again, that's another, risk factor involved in it. And right now, it's the season of the prom. I remember many years ago, my mother would always say to me at the beginning of the summer, she would say like, oh, how many young people are we going to lose this year? You know, so we have come a long way, but we still have a long way to go in terms of maybe parents realizing, or the community actually realizing that this stuff doesn't go away. You know, and adolescent behavior and adolescent, you know, substance abuse does not go away. And it's going to happen, and we need to, I don't know, be more vigilant, and or we need to educate. We need to that's personally, that's what I believe. We need to educate our children to make better choices.
Yeah, no, for sure. That if one thing Carl is right about is you can't police it out of existence. You can't police it away. There will always be people say. I mean, I had a conversation with someone. If you want to deal with the drug thing, then stop giving out ABC permits. Well, maybe. But you know what? There was a period of time when there was no alcohol allowed technically on the reserve. You couldn't buy it, so people were going outside and you still bring it up. You know, so you can't put your thumb down. It's that way. What you have to do is you have to, as you say, use education and remove the desire to put yourself in that
permits.
kind of
Permits
situation.
don't. You know, permits don't add or take away from substance abuse in regards to alcohol.
I mean, that's just purely regulatory.
Yeah. If, in fact, when the more permits that was given out, the less people we've ever had gotten hurt. If you look back in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, we had a lot of people die on the highways because they were going to get it. You know, now it's in their backyard. There's another set of problems because it's the availability, but you still have cigarette stores selling. So, you know, with a permit or without a permit, or a blind pig, or you know, they're still selling it regardless of the permits. So I don't think that is as much having the amount of permits that we have in this community. I think it was worse, a lot worse before. We were getting like at least a death or you know, a month almost. You know, not just from this community, but from other communities. So. You know, what is it? You know, education is the big thing. The only thing is with education, it's a long process. It's a generational process, you know, from one generation to the other that's going to change.
But we have seen progress.
Definitely, and you know, your services have done a lot in regards to that, and it's always there, and it's something that people, you know, at least that start doing something. I still think that they need to do more on the policing side. You know, because that has to bolster it. You know, but
there's policing, there's servicing, and then there's also the, you know, as a community, as adults, as parents, as grandparents, as aunts, uncles, brothers, and so on. I mean, we have to be thinking about it. We have to be talking about it. You know, we talk to kids all the time. They're not all our kids. And you have to, when something like this, I said to some kids yesterday, I mean, this is a tragedy, you know, at least, but don't let it be for nothing. You know, we need to learn from this, you know, we need to, I mean, get kids to understand, you know, you're here for a reason.
The community has to get more serious in what they want to do and what they want for this community, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take more than a handful of people to resolve a lot of these things.
And it's going to be a combination, I think, of the services as well as working together with families, and not just, you know, one or two families, but working with the community. The reasons why, like somebody that actually drinks or has to take drugs, it's those underlying issues which are the hardest things to change. So I guess that would be a good place to end it for now. Yeah. Okay, so we'll be right back, and we're going to discuss tons of more stuff here on Straight Talk.